Okay, good evening everyone. Welcome to our webinar, tonight's webinar this evening. It's on the topic of being an engineer or an ETO in the Merchant Navy or the maritime industry. So my name is Catherine. I'm the Chief Instructor of Sea Cadet Training Centre Caledonia, and I'm also joined by my colleague Katrina, who is the Chief Instructor of Whale Island Boat Station. And we're going to be here to just help facilitate the call and for safeguarding purposes. And we're also joined by the fantastic people, Rachel, Stephen and Lorna, and they are going to be leading tonight's talk. While we wait for people to join, if you could, in the chat function, could you write your name and your unit into the chat function just while we sort ourselves out, and we'll start in just a couple of minutes. Any questions you have throughout the presentation, if you could also pop them in the Q&A part. We might answer some of them as we go along, and we'll also have about 20 minutes at the end where we'll go through and read out all your questions. Thank you very much. Okay, I'll pass over to you guys and you can start whenever you're ready. Thank you.
Right, hi everyone. Thank you so much for taking your time out of your evening to hear us, and we're really excited to share with you a little bit more about the Merchant Navy and the maritime sector and the engineering roles that are available to you if you're interested in doing so. So I'm joined by a couple of colleagues of mine who've already been introduced to you, but I'll introduce them a little bit more as we go through. But if we just start by, maybe let's start with Lorna, if you want to introduce yourself and let people know who you are, just so we've got a bit of an understanding.
Sure. Hello, good evening everybody. My name's Lorna Wagner and I'm the Programme Manager for Careers and Outreach for Maritime UK.
And Stephen, do you want to introduce yourself as well?
Yep. Hi everyone. My name's Stephen Gallagher. So I served on board vessels as an electrotechnical officer and now work ashore managing engineers on board ships.
Great. So like we said, you'll hear a little bit more from our other speakers as we go through. Stephen is one of our Careers at Sea ambassadors. Some of you might have already had visits from our Careers at Sea ambassadors, but I've invited Stephen specifically to talk about his experience as an engineer, because this is what we're particularly focusing on today. So yeah, like I said, let's get going. If you bear with me while I share my screen, and just to say again what our hosts have already said, if you have any questions, please do put them in the Q&A box, and if they're ones that we can answer straight away, then we'll do so. If not, then we'll go there. Oh, look at that, I haven't actually edited the names there, so apologies for that. Nice little error already as we go. So let's go through. So like I said, I work for Careers at Sea, and we are all about promoting careers in the Merchant Navy, and you might have seen our website already, careersatsea.org. so if you've got any further questions or want some more information, that's a good place to go back to if you don't already get the information from this webinar here. So I'm going to start off by playing a quick video. So I think hopefully you should be able to hear the sound, so bear with me. Let me just see if I can share computer sound. There we go. Okay, so I'll play this video. You might have already seen it, but let's have a look.
Forget 9 to 5. It's 95% of all trade that's moved by sea.
And I'm a part of it.
Me.
Fish fingers for tea.
2 Bs in a C.
From double signs to container giants.
Skate park mission to bridge watch session.
Driving mum insane. Lifting a new car with a crane.
You can work your way up, they said, and I've never felt closer to the bridge. And it's true, the journey, inspiring.
All cylinders firing, night shift tiring, but 3 months on and 3 months off.
Good travel, they said. Photo of me in the med.
Gaming all day long, waste of time, wrong. Transferable skills that I never imagined. Teasing seagulls with chips, only watching the ships. Now world-leading tech at my fingertips.
From kid doing school play to knowing that someday I'll captain this ship. It sounds like a script, but it's real.
50,000 tons of steel.
And I feel
grateful
for the place that persuaded us that a job much more than
bright coloured containers could be
for me. A career at sea, the best decision I made.
I'm helping the world now, and I connect it by trade.
Start every day with a brew, not a bad view. but always remembering where I grew up on the deck.
New day,
New adventure,
never the same. So many hats.
Laugh with the lads.
A FaceTime with Dad.
decent paycheck,
High tech.
To Quebec.
Clean deck.
to see or not to see.
It's a no-brainer.
For me.
So, like I said, some of you might have already seen that video, and you can have a look at that again on our Careers at Sea website. It's on the homepage, so you can have a look at that, and I can give a link to that if people are particularly interested. So let's not watch it again. So first I'm going to ask, what is the Merchant Navy? And I'm going to see if I can get the chat up and see if any of you are able to give me an answer of what you think the Merchant Navy is. Anyone got any idea? Put it in the chat and we'll see. Some of you might already have an idea. Shipping, yep, that's a great answer. Any other answers we got there? Trade, yep, that's a great one. Shipping and trade, yeah, so all these answers are great. So the Merchant Navy is essentially anything to do with commercial shipping, and yes, civilian trade, that's a great one. And some of you have mentioned the Royal Navy there. It is similar to the Royal Navy in that they work on board ship, but it's a very separate organisation. So the Royal Navy is a kind of well, the Royal Navy is something separate, but the Merchant Navy is about anything that is not to do with the country's Royal Navy. So if you think about trade and shipping, you might think about passenger vessels like ferries and cruise ships. You might think about trading vessels like container ships and tankers, those kind of vessels. So this is what we mean when we say the Royal Navy. And yes, someone's put there, Merchant Navy has no involvement in military service. It doesn't, that's right, but you might also know of the Royal Fleet Auxiliary, and they are the Merchant Navy, but they work quite closely with the Royal Navy in supporting them with things like supplies. So there are some that are connected, but you're right, the answers you've given are great. So when we say Merchant Navy, we're thinking commercial shipping. So with that in mind, let's ask a few questions. So does anyone know where the busiest ferry port is in the UK? Anyone got any ideas? Have a little think. See if we can get any in the chat. Oh, there's a few answers coming in. Dover seems quite popular. Yep, you're right. Dover is the busiest ferry port in the UK. So you're absolutely right there. Somewhere down south, yeah, there we go. It's a good answer. The other question we've got here is, how many ships are in the International Merchant Navy fleet? How many do you think? There's International Merchant Navy. Someone coming here, 100, 10,000, 150. It's more than 150, I'll give you that. It's actually 50,000 around, which is a huge number. A couple of you got the answer right, so I wonder whether you might have looked at some of our other webinars and seen the answer, or maybe you're just that clever and you managed to get the answer in one. So well done to everyone who got that. So you can imagine the Merchant Navy is huge. And did you know that over 90% of all goods come in and out of the UK by sea? So everything from food to the things that you use at home, like technical equipment. It's been particularly involved in medical supplies, so at the moment that's particularly relevant. So it's there's a huge number of vessels involved in a really important part of our economy. So yeah, just to give you a bit of background on the Merchant Navy there. So we're going to go on to ship comparisons. Now, this is where I'm going to ask Stephen to jump in, because Stephen has got experience of actually working on board ship. And rather than going through all of these separately, because I'm keen to get to some of the content later on, I'm going to click through to all of them. And you can have a look at the kind of sizes of ships that we're talking about in the Merchant Navy. So we've got examples of tankers there, which is longer than the Eurostar, if you can, if anyone's ever taken that, or you can imagine that. We've got cruise ships that are about the same size as Sydney Harbour. And the ferries, although quite small, if you imagine the BT Tower in London, it's a similar kind of size. So these are big vessels as well. But this is where I'm going to hand over to Stephen and ask him to tell us a little bit about some of the ships that he's worked on. And yeah, just speak about that experience, if that's all right, Stephen.
Yeah, no problem. Thanks, Rachel. Yeah, so I was very lucky during my period at sea. So I was at sea for about 10 years. During my cadetship, I was with a company that laid cables and repaired subsea cables. So these are dynamic positioning ships. So they're stationed around the world. They're able to hold position in impressive amounts of weather and waves to within a meter of a subsea cable and pick up a cable and repair the cables. I was then also on a cruise ship, Disney Magic cruise ship. So a totally different experience from being on a ship with no passengers to being on a Disney cruise ship with Mickey Mouse and all the characters and all that comes with Disney. But as an engineer, it was a great opportunity, because going from the technical side on the cable laying ship, the cruise ship has all of the other facilities, all of the entertainment. If you can imagine how many kitchens and galleys there are on a cruise ship, how many supplies, how many services are required, it's an enormous feat. And then I decided it would be a good opportunity to then move to tankers to get another experience. So again, a very different style of vessel, but super interesting, different technology, but for an engineer, really fascinating. Different things are your priority in different types of ships. So cruise ships, priority is passengers. Cable layers, priority is keeping position, and tankers is moving the cargo. So engineering really is quite fascinating, how the priorities can change depending on what vessel you're working on. So yeah, really, really interesting vessels.
That's great, thanks Stephen. So again, you'll hear a little bit more from Stephen about his experience, particularly as an engineer, as we go through, but hopefully that gives you a bit of an overview of the kind of vessels that we're talking about and the kind of experiences that you can have working on board ship. And like Stephen said, there's a whole variety of vessels, and each one is going to have a different purpose, and you have a different experience on those ships. And we'll talk a little bit more about those kind of opportunities as we go through with the rest of the webinar. So just bear with me when I click. Here we go. So we're going to talk about jobs on board. So this is just a quick run through of the kind of jobs that we can do. So from our other webinars, and I've seen that a couple of you have mentioned that you have maybe listened to some of our other webinars as well and heard from different ambassadors and visitors that we've had there. We've got, these are the main roles that we have on board ship. So there is the deck and navigation officer, there's the engineer officers and the electrotechnical officers, and there's also ratings roles, which are support roles. So if you want to hear a little bit more about the deck roles and the kind of navigation roles, then you can refer back to our other webinars, because we've got some more information from there and some ambassadors there who have worked in those roles. But this is where I'm going to hand over to Stephen again, just to speak a little bit more about engineering on board. And I've got some photos here which have been kindly donated by some supporters that we work with Careers at Sea. But Stephen, would you mind giving us a bit of an insight into what kind of roles you have on board as an engineer, and also the kind of training that you might have done in college and on board ship?
Yeah, absolutely. So I think sometimes people refer engineering to just an engine. Sometimes they relate just an engine, but if you imagine a cruise ship engine is the size of a double-decker bus, the amount of things that are required to make that double-decker bus move and the engine move, the other systems that are on board, the fresh water, the oil, the separators, you know, it's huge just in the engine room. But then you move to all the other services on board. So you do have to supply power. You have to have emergency generators, lifeboat engines, cargo control systems, electrical systems. So really the role of the engineer on board is not just, you know, an engine that goes up and down and spins. It's all of the other services and controls that are required. So really the Merchant Navy do it great in terms of the training. So the cadetship at the colleges, as you can see on the pictures, you get a real hands-on experience. So they have simulators, they have dummy engines, they have all this sort of material in the college, so that when you go on board, you're not sort of hit by a bolt of lightning, not understanding what anything is. You see it in the college, you do a bit of theory, and then when you go on board, you'll see the engines and you'll have a bit of knowledge. But the guys on board, the engineers, they've all been in the same position as a cadet. They've all seen what has to happen. They all understand that going on board's a bit weary, daunting to start with, but then everybody, it's a little family atmosphere with the engineering department. So I mean, 1 minute you can be working on an engine, the next minute a thruster, the next minute up on the bridge, and the next minute in the galley fixing something to do with a dishwasher, for instance. It's really varied, the job on board, which is kind of the perk. So your day-to-day life on board the ship changes every single day. You have routines and you have rounds to keep and some checks to do, but you know, if there's a breakdown, it's all hands to it, and you you really work together as a team. So it's a great opportunity.
Amazing, thanks Stephen. And you could probably hear a few key skills in there already, which I know that are already things that you guys as Sea Cadets get to practice in some of the things you do with your unit, so things like teamwork. And I think I'm right in saying that you guys have some specific engineering courses that you do, is that right, from our MSSC hosts?
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, we do.
Yeah, so there's loads of things that you can pick up with your Sea Cadet experience as well that you can bring straight into your training to work as an engineer, or even as a deck officer if you're interested in that. But thanks, Stephen, for sharing that. That's really great. So that's the engineering side. And now this is a video taken from another one of our ambassadors, and he's going to talk a little bit about his experience on board ship as well. So we'll just play this video as well so you can hear his experience.
Hi, my name's Chris and I'm a marine engineer in the Merchant Navy. From a young age I was always interested in how things worked. I enjoyed the STEM subjects at school and later went on to study maths and physics at A-level. I knew I wanted to be a marine engineer at sea, but I didn't know anything about the Merchant Navy. So originally I'd applied to the Royal Navy as an engineering officer. It wasn't until I'd started my application process that I'd actually found out about the Merchant Navy. I applied to several different companies and got accepted with a cruise company. So I started a foundation degree and spent 3 years travelling the world, gaining lots of experience, meeting new people and learning the systems and machinery on board. And then after the 3 years I qualified as a third engineering officer and basically carried out an engineering watch, and that was my role for 4 months on board. I then decided that I wanted to change company to a ferry company, completely different type of vessel and run completely differently. I then worked my way up to first engineer and sometimes cover the chief engineer position. So what do we do as marine engineers? Our role on board is to maintain and operate all of the machinery on board the vessel. So as a cadet you learn about all the different systems you have on board, the different machinery you have, how to maintain this machinery safely and efficiently, and you'll learn basically how to work in a team and to make sure that you know how to run an engine room watch. Every day is different, it's challenging, it's rewarding, but the time off is great and you'll meet some great people along the way. Thank you for listening, and I hope you decide to pursue a career in the Merchant Navy.
There you go. So it's another experience for one of our ambassadors. And for anybody here who is maybe in charge of a unit, or if you're a part of a unit yourself and you want to hear more from our ambassadors, you can invite people to come and speak to you directly. So people like Stephen or people like the ones you've already heard on previous webinars. So feel free to get in touch with us if you're interested in hearing more specifically about that. And I know there's also a scheme with my colleague Lorna, which we're going to go on to now. I think that's our next slide. Yep, straw-based jobs. So this is where I pass over to my colleague Lorna, who's going to speak a little bit about the wider maritime sector as well. Because this is just on board ship and the Merchant Navy, but there's also a huge opportunities within the maritime sector. So I won't do all of the slides for her, so I'll pass over to Lorna, and bear with us while we switch over the sharing. So over to you, Lorna.
Thank you. Right, I will attempt to share my screen and open the PowerPoint. Okay, can you all see that? Can someone give me a thumbs up? Yeah, okay. So my name's Lorna Wagner. I'm the Programme Manager for Careers and Outreach for Maritime UK. So careers at sea form a very big part of the maritime sector, but 75% of the jobs in the sector are actually onshore. So there's a huge number of opportunities for young people and for adult job seekers to consider when they're thinking about where they're going to go next following school, college or university. So if we start off by talking about the sector and how big it is, the Department for Transport has said that the maritime sector will double in size in the next 10 years. So the number of jobs that there are will double, but they won't necessarily all be the same jobs. There's huge movements towards digitalization of the sector, but also in robotics and in autonomous craft. So boats that sail themselves essentially, and there's no people on board, and all sorts of other engineering and research and innovation developments, whether that's to support the drive to be carbon net zero and have zero emissions boats and ships by 2050. The whole sector has been charged with being carbon net zero by 2050. Or other developments. So I just wanted to quickly talk about the different industries that are part of the sector. So we've talked a bit about the Merchant Navy already, and you're clearly well aware of what the Royal Navy is. Cruise, leisure boats, super yachts, all into the maritime sector. I had a conversation with a young lady this afternoon who works on inland waterways. So she works on the River Thames, the PLA, the Port of London Authority, and moves from all sorts of vessels from one to another in her working week. Boat building, naval architecture are huge within the sector, and there's a great shortage of naval architects. Sea fishing and aquaculture are included in the sector, not the actual act of fishing. That comes under a different department in the government, but making sure, if you like, that the hardware is up to scratch, that the boats are looked after, that they've got somewhere to harbour, and all the services that go around that. Marine science is also part of the maritime sector, and that includes things like marine biology and conservation careers and so on. Cruise we've talked about, and leisure boating. Engineering, which I know you're all very interested in, and that's why you're here tonight, forms a huge part of what we're doing, whether it is working as an engineer in a port and making sure that the port keeps moving, and the whole process of ships coming in, being unloaded, reloaded, and sailing away again safely, or whether it's operating cranes, or if you're involved in the design, the building, the maintenance, the refurbishment of boats and other hardware. Work boats and tugs and water taxis, etc., form part of the sector. Tugs are a particular favourite of mine. Rachel's heard me say that many times now, but I just have a soft spot for them. I just think they're really cute and really strong. And then business services. So I was talking, it's National Apprenticeship Week next week, and I was talking to a young lady this week who works in the maritime sector, but actually she's doing an apprenticeship in marketing and events management. But she's working for a maritime organisation. So in the same way that any other business needs the HR people that look after the staff and employ them and get them paid and so on, the finance people that pay the bills, the warehousing processes, the logistics, and so on and so forth, training departments, you name it. All of the maritime businesses don't only do things that are on the water or next to the water, they're all running functioning businesses at the same time. So it might be that there's someone, it's unlikely because you've come on because it's engineering, but it might be that there's someone here that's quite interested in becoming a lawyer. But have you thought about being a maritime lawyer? So what are the key messages about the sector? It's a well-paid career. The average national wage is £29,000. The average national wage in maritime is 38. Lots of different ways to come in, no one way. You don't have to join the sector when you're 16 as an apprentice or as a cadet, and that's the only way to come in. Lots of different ways to come in, and fantastic opportunities to travel the world if that's what you want to do. The green revolution. So the whole industry is going through a massive period of change. You may have heard of the Artemis team that were part of the America's Cup. The people that were involved with that have created an organisation called Artemis Technologies, and they're based in Northern Ireland, and they are currently developing emission-free water taxis and ferries. And the way that these vessels travel through the water, well, in fact, they travel above the water. They kind of fly along the top of the water with a foil or like an aircraft wing, which is underneath the water. They're silent and they're emission free. So if you fancy looking up some future technologies, Artemis would be a good one to have a look at. I also spoke to someone recently that runs his own business in Southampton, where they clean the bottom of hulls of cargo ships and cruise ships and so on when they come into harbour. That green, brown, sticky biological stuff that attaches itself to the undersides of boats, if that's not kept under check, a clean cruise liner can be 40% more fuel efficient if the underside of the hull has been cleaned. But obviously shipping operators want to bring the ship into port, get it emptied, get it serviced, cleaned, whatever is happening, get it reloaded, whether that's people or cargo, and get it out again, because all the time it's in port, it's not earning any money. So you don't want to take a cargo ship and have to put it into dry dock to clean the undersides. And traditionally, divers have gone underneath and scraped this sticky stuff off, and it would fall down onto the seabed of wherever it is in the world. And there is a problem with that, because if the sticky stuff, if the biological creatures have attach themselves in the Pacific but are being scraped off in the Indian Ocean, then you've got biopollution, because you've got creatures and beings in the wrong sea. So there's a little company in Southampton that has created robots that go under the water, go round the underside of the hull. It takes about 8 hours to do a big cruise ship. They collect the sticky stuff, and they've got robots which are said to be a cross between a lawnmower and a vacuum cleaner. So it trims this stuff back and sucks it up. And then the waste is turned into biofuel. Fantastic, tiny little company. It's 2 guys, 2 brothers, but they're doing something really important. So if you're interested in being involved in the green revolution, if you're interested in finding out more or being involved in wind and wave power generation, I'm told to meet the government targets, we have a shortage of 22,000 engineers. In order to meet what the government has said we will generate by wind power, and I think they said in 10 years, I must check that fact, but they need mechanical engineers and they need electrical engineers. So the industry, the sector is massive. They talk about it as being a $3 trillion industry, just because that's the way that sectors are compared internationally. 1.1 million people in the UK are employed in the maritime sector, and that's expected to double. So it's a funded career. You know a bit about cadetships, fantastic way to get in and get your qualifications and get your career really started off without you ending up with a university debt. There are also apprenticeships, and there's many employers that are out there and are prepared to pay for young people and new job seekers to be trained on the job. And we just say there's a job for everyone. So you can use the Maritime UK Careers website. There's videos, there's virtual tours, there's new careers videos, which are very good. I've got, for National Apprenticeship Week next week, I think I've got 13 different interviews with apprentices working in different parts of the sector, and some really good interviews with people that are senior managers in different roles in the sector, who started out as apprentices. So if you're interested in that, it'll be all over social media next week. Now we're a little short of time, so I'm just going to whiz through this quickly. But here's some job titles that you may never have heard of. A naval architect, stevedore, wind farm technicians and engineers we've talked about. Ship cyber security. Now this is really interesting. If you've got autonomous vessels and there's no staff, there's no crew on board, then all someone has to do to steal that ship is to break into the computer system and reset the coordinates as to where the boat has to go and dock. So ship cyber security is a whole new industry that's opening up. Hydrologists are people that work with the management and coping with emergencies, actually, to do with water. A port's logistics officer is responsible for moving vessels safely around a port. Cadetships, we've talked about, funded training for careers at sea in a variety of disciplines. A naval architect, I think I touched on earlier, but being involved in the research, the design, the development, the build, and refurbishment of a marine vehicle throughout its life. So those are my contact details. If you want to follow us on Twitter or have a look at our website, I would hope you would find some information there that would be useful. And that's me, so I'll stop sharing, Rachel.
Thank you. Sorry, it took me a while. Apologies for that. So yeah, thanks, Lorna. That's really great. And like Lorna said, we've got National Apprenticeship Week. Did you say it was next week, Lorna? Yeah. So if you're interested in any of that, you can follow that. And we're also going to be working towards National Careers Week, which is the first week of March, and you'll hear lots more from Careers at Sea. And I'm sure that we'll also get some information from Lorna during National Careers Week as well. Someone said, please, can you send this info via email? I believe that we'll have all of these presentations available on the system. Is that right? They're going to be recorded so you can watch them back and get information from there?
Yeah, that's correct.
Yeah, so if you want any of that, then that's great. And I have seen a few people asking about the qualifications that you might need to start different career pathways, particularly in the Merchant Navy as we're talking about. So that's what I'm going to go on to now. So all those people that have been asking those questions, bear with us while I share this. So hopefully, once I get this again, are you all seeing that? Hopefully you should be able to say that. Yeah. So here what we've got is a map of where you can study for your cadetships, and like Lorna said, that the cadetship programs are fully sponsored, which means that you don't have to pay for any of your training, and it'll all be covered. That's the college study and the working on board ship, like Stephen said about the different experiences that he had. And these are just some of the nautical colleges that you can go at. And I wanted to particularly draw your attention to this because some of the nautical colleges have virtual open days. At the moment, we can't do face-to-face open days for obvious reasons, but what they do have is virtual open days. So you can go and have a look around virtually the college, and that includes things like the simulators that Stephen was talking about. And you can also get to meet some cadets who are studying for it right now and speak to some of the lecturers and meet some of the sponsoring companies who will be sponsoring your training and hear about the different opportunities you can get, particularly things like what kind of ships you can work on. So remember, Stephen said before that he's had lots of experience working on different types of vessels. When you're looking at sponsoring companies, then they'll talk to you about the different vessels that they can go on. So I might actually hand over to Stephen, if that's all right, just to speak a little bit about sponsoring companies and how you chose yours. Is that all right?
Yeah, sure thing. Yeah. So when I was investigating the Merchant Navy, probably in a similar situation to some of you maybe, just through Google, trying to find out what the options were, and I came across a company called Ship Safe Training Group, SSTG. There are other groups, Clyde Marine and all sorts of other groups, but when I started conversations with the training manager, it really came down to, I knew I wanted to be an engineer. I was already an electrician before I went to sea. So when we started discussing what types of ships I wanted to be on, my main aim was technology and something, that was going to challenge me. And we started talking about the dynamic positioning ships and all the control systems. So that was really, for me as an electrician, that really interested me. However, she did give me lots of options of different types of ships, and we really discussed, what I was looking to get out of it and what they could offer to help me with that. So yeah, the training groups and the training companies are really, really helpful. They have a lot of contacts in the industry, and they have experience. They've been doing this for hundreds of cadets every single year, so they're very good guides.
Great, thanks, Stephen. I think the takeaway bit from there is that there's no right or wrong answer. It's what you want to get out from your cadetship and what you're looking to experience. So definitely explore and have a look at the different kind of companies and different options they get. as well. So let's move on to, so this is just a quick slide to show you the kind of things that you can find on the Careers at Sea website. But what I'm going to do is go quickly over to the qualifications, because a few of you have asked about that. Now, I'm sure that Stephen would agree that particularly with engineering, maths is a really important skill to have, because there'll be, particularly in your college work, it'll be quite heavy on maths. So some of you have said, do you need A-levels? Not necessarily A-level maths, but a kind of a good qualification, a good grasp on maths is important because of the kind of studying that you'll need to do. There are some extra support things in colleges if there are certain subjects that you find particularly challenging, but I'm sure Stephen would agree that maths is a big one to kind of focus on. And again, I think there are resources that you can get with the Sea Cadets to help with maths and particularly with engineering as well, which is really helpful. But you'll see here that in order to do the officer training, and that's going through the cadetship route, then what you'll need is GCSEs or standard grades in Scotland, or A-levels or highs, depending on what level of qualification you want to go into. So we've got a HNC or a HND route. There's also a Scottish professional diploma and foundation degree. And all of these will lead to you getting your professional seafaring certificate. So that's called your Officer of the Watch ticket. But you can have a look at some of the different options. But again, you might want to have a look at what each of the courses are, what your plans are and where you want to go, and have a think about how that affects your the kind of where you want to go in terms of your wider career as well. And again, like Stephen said, the sponsoring companies will be helpful in speaking to you about what are your future plans, what kind of courses are you looking for, what skills have you already got that you can bring, particularly with not only with the academic qualifications, but also with personal attributes as well. And we'll come to that again. So every sponsoring company will have a slightly different view. Most people will ask for maths, English and a science, at least at GCSE level for the officers. But again, check on the company websites, because they might have different expectations of what you need to be coming into the cadetship with. So speak to them. They've got all the lists on the company website, so definitely check that out. But again, just to reiterate that maths is really important. So it's worth investing a bit of time, if you're really interested in engineering, in those core maths skills. So this is the officer route, but there are also ratings routes. So this is more of an apprenticeship route, some of which you might hear from the wider sector from Lorna, but there are also ratings options in the Merchant Navy as well. And for these, you don't necessarily need to have particular grades, but again, a good idea of maths would be good. But you can go in with GCSEs or standard grades, and again, each company will be slightly different. So on our Careers at Sea website, we've got a list of companies that offer apprenticeships under the how to apply page. And again, if you're looking at the cadetship side, you can look at the sponsoring company page and find all of the different sponsoring companies that will offer positions in officers and ratings. So is there anything you wanted to add there, Stephen, particularly about qualifications that I haven't already covered?
I mean, for me personally, I had my GCSEs, A's to C's in science and maths and English. I then did an electrical apprenticeship shoreside. So having some of those other qualifications as well that you may have from shoreside apprenticeships or other additional learning, you know, as Rachel said, when you start discussing with the training groups, there may be a need for some of those skills that that they're looking for someone to go to sea. So it's worth sharing that information with them.
And I think as well, speaking about your experience as Sea Cadets as well, because you'll be amazed at the kind of skills that you've picked up that will be used in seafaring as well. I know that there's particularly some skills that you might do if, now I might get this wrong, so apologies. It's like is it the offshore and the, what are the other ones called? I can't remember the name of them, but the practical things that you guys get to do in Sea Cadets. I'm sure our host will be able to help me out with what those are again.
Yeah, Catherine, do you want me to pick that up? Yeah, the cadet number of our vessels sail or power vessels, which gives them different experiences. But which is a great.
We've talked a lot about the academic qualifications, and if we go back to the officers there as well, so you can have a look at that again. It's not only those, it's also the softer skills. So I think we have a slide on that. Bear with me if I can find it. Yes, so all of these soft skills that you have. So we've got numerous on there, but things like communication, leadership, enthusiasm. We've talked a lot about problem solving, particularly Stephen was saying with the engineering, that is a skill that can be quite important. So it's not only the academics, but also the other skills that you might pick up again through the stuff that you do with Sea Cadets or through your schoolwork. Don't just think of it only as academic, although that is important. There's a whole load of other skills that you might not even be aware that you've got that you can bring, which will be a huge part of working at sea, because it's like I said, it's not just about your academic skills, it's also about some of these skills which I'm sure again Stephen will be able to say are really important. And again, I've got a comment on there saying, please, can we send a link to a recording? I believe it's already, they sit on the platform, so you can have a look at the virtual training platform. Is that right?
Yeah, I'll add the link in just a sec, but you can find it on the Training and Admin website, but I'll add a link in just now.
Perfect. So I am happy to leave it there, and I think unless Stephen wants to add any last bits about the soft skills and attributes, and then once Stephen's finished talking, I am more than happy to take any questions and see if there's anything else that we can help you with from there. So hand over to Stephen and then type in any questions.
Yeah, sure thing. Yeah, the soft skills are actually incredibly important. When you're working with different nationalities, which you would be on a ship, you may be one of 10 British, or you may be one of 0 British, and it may be all Eastern European or Indian or Filipino, but you really have to learn how to work with everyone. So everyone on board is a team. So that teamwork ethos is super important. There's no way to solve a problem without having the input from everyone else. There's no real working by yourself. Because you're on the ship, everybody's looking after each other. So, you know, you have that teamwork to bounce off each other, and everyone has different experience. You have the older guys that have been at sea for years and have seen everything, or say they've seen everything. And then you have the younger guys who have different ideas and maybe a little bit more dynamic on how they'll troubleshoot. And then it's just trying to bounce that off each other to try and find the best solution. Because ultimately, you just need to keep the ship running. It's your job on board to just keep the ship running, keep things smooth, and repair problems. So there will be breakdowns. There'll be pressure, there'll be, you know, all this kind of stuff. But when you fix a problem, or the engine's been failing and the officer shouting, trying to get things working, and you finally fix it, there's a massive sense of achievement there for everyone on board. And, you know, everyone appreciates the work, the crew. These ships don't sail around the world without crew. So it's really important. Communication is vital, particularly in all aspects of engineering, even if it's just reading the correct document, sharing that information with each other and communicating, because someone might see something you don't. So yeah, soft skills are super important, just as important as theory.
Yeah, I think that's right. And as well, Stephen, this is a question just from me, I guess. How have you used your skills that you worked on board ship in your role now working ashore? I'm sure you've taken some of those skills over as well. Yeah,
so now I work for an LNG company. We transport liquid natural gas around the world, and I'm one of the vessel managers. So I manage 6 vessels that are trading globally. So for me, these soft skills are super important because I'm working with a team of engineers. So 20 engineers, 10 engineers, different nationalities. So being able to understand what they're trying to tell me is really important, because ultimately in the background, I'm troubleshooting the same problem they are. So when they contact me to tell me there's a breakdown or a failure of a hose or a connection, I'm also looking at drawings and I'm trying to find the right information to support the vessel. Whether it's that or whether it's just trying to find them support from the correct engineers, it's still troubleshooting shoreside as well. And these soft skills are, again, vital. So I bring all those skills from being on board ship, my experience, and then I bounce off the guys that are on board to try and see where we can fix things, how we can make life on board better or more efficient.
Great, that's really great, thank you. So I see that Lorna's posted the link there to the careers page on Maritime UK for that. I will post the Careers at Sea link on there as well in case you want to have a look at that. But Lorna, if you've got any last bits you want to add in, so I haven't seen any additional questions so far, so we can round off a little bit earlier if we need to, but I'll let you speak if you wanted to add anything else.
Only that for someone who's only been working in the maritime sector since May last year, and I came into it from education and from a careers background, I've been stunned by the way people in the sector go out of their way to help other people. I was interviewing someone this afternoon who's an apprentice, and it's not this afternoon, the other day, and I was asking him who the most important person had been in his own career journey, and he's an apprentice boat builder down in the New Forest. And he said, I'd like to tell you one of the foremen at work, but I can't pick just one of them out because each one of them is an absolute expert and they want to help you learn everything. And that kind of reiterates what Rachel and what Stephen have been saying about people wanting to support you in your career and help you along, whether it's whilst you're a cadet or if you're lucky enough to get yourself a cadetship, or you going through an apprenticeship, or whatever you end up doing. Genuinely, I've found that people really want to help young people on their way. You just have to be brave enough to ask the questions. That's all I would add.
There we go, found the unmute button again. Okay, we've got a couple of questions coming in, which is really great. So I'm just trying to find the slide that gets me the answer to one of them. So someone has said, how big are the ships? So we had the ship comparisons page before, but on there we've got tankers that are over 450 meters long. We've got cruise ships that can be 300 plus meters long. The tugs are the ones that Lorna's favorite ones are slightly smaller. They're maybe around 100 meters, but like Lorna said, they are incredibly powerful vessels that work with some of these bigger container ships and other vessels to help get them in and out of ports as well. So container ships, 350 to 400 meters long, so lots of different sizes of ships. And Stephen, did you say that the engines were as big as a double-decker bus? Was that right?
Yeah, some of them could be as big as double-decker buses, and the cruise ship I was on, the Disney Magic, we had 4 engines, so we had basically four double-decker buses down in the engine room. They're enormous. When we change a piston, or if you've ever seen a piston on a car engine, it's the size of maybe your little finger, whereas the pistons on the Disney Magic cruise ship, you could stand inside. So you actually physically get inside and make the measurements. It's incredible. And for that reason, the crew-wise, just for the other question, so on the cruise ship I was on, we had 960 crew members. So out of that, we had, I think the engineering department was just under 100 engineers on board. That's, engineering officers as well as ratings. So we have the guys that are just keeping the engine room ticking. It's a big ship that needs painted, it needs fixed, it needs cleaned. There's a lot of oil, so you've got those guys. You've also got the engineers who are in charge of different departments, and then all the other people on board the ship who all have their own roles. 900 people on board a ship just as crew is enormous. And then to the tankers, where they're as long, if not bigger, and there's only 18. So it really depends on what services are on board and what type of ship it is to determine the crew size.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I think we talked particularly about engineering here, but I think when we think crew, we've got a whole team of people. So you've got the navigation team, the engine team, like Stephen said, but also remember things like ship's cook, and we've had some people who are on hospitality. So if we've got passengers on board, there's also those kind of roles. So there's a few different roles that you can go to, but particularly with the engineers, I think just trying to get my head around how many double-decker bus size engines you've got on board is amazing. What colour are they? I don't actually know the answer to that. I'm going to say quite a few colours. I think it depends. I think the Disney cruise ships are particularly got a few different things going on, but I don't know the answer to that question. So you might have to Google it, unless Stephen knows the answer to that.
No, but you would be amazed that paint in ships, like Lorna was saying earlier, paint for ships is an industry in itself. For efficiency, that paint on ships is incredibly important. So yeah, I mean, the paint colors, obviously you can have almost anything, but it would be amazing the amount of detail that a paint engineer can tell you about a ship and how it will affect performance, maneuvering, transfer through water. It's efficiency, everything. Paint is actually incredibly important, which is surprising.
Who knew? Who knew paint was so important? We've also got a really good question here about how long is the cadetship. So cadetships, whether you're going in for the GCSE A-level, Scottish National Diploma level, it's about 3 years, give or take. So the way they do it is they split it up into what are known as phases, which are sort of like terms at school. So your first phase will be in college, and the first phase usually consists of the kind of basic understanding and your safety certificates. So safety certificates known as STCWs are the standard safety qualifications that every seafarer needs to do when they're on board, and they're practical courses which you'll do at the colleges we spoke about before. And then you'll go into phase 2, which will be your sea phase. So what you do is you take the understanding you've got from college and you apply that to working on board ship. Then you'll go back to phase 3 again, which is back in college. So it's and then you'll go back to sea again and then back in college. So it's a bit of both. It's like a sandwich course. So all the stuff that you learn in college is something that you then apply to working on board ship, and it all kind of builds up on each other as it goes. So give or take 3 years altogether. I think apprenticeships are a little bit shorter. But yeah, 3 years, depending on that. And I'm sure Stephen can give a bit more insight into the length and the type of training, particularly with the phases and the practical courses.
Yeah, pretty much like you said, Rachel, it's the first phase you're at college, you really get a foundation of what the Merchant Navy is really. It's a bit more detail. It gives some overview, and most important, it preps you for your first trip at sea. So it does all the safety. You get your short courses. So the short courses are amazing. They're an incredible amount of fun. They have a simulator swimming pool in South Shields, and they simulate you a ship, and they have life rafts, and there's waves, and they turn the lights out. It's like thunder and lightning. It's great fun, and you learn how to basically keep yourself safe. And then a bit of theory, and then when you go to sea, you're expected to kind of start accomplishing tasks, and you have a workbook to go through to sort of understand your role as an engineer or electrician on board the vessel. And then you come back, and the best part is the second phase when you come back, because you've all been at sea, all the guys or girls that you've been in college with, you've all had different experiences, and you get to start telling stories about what happened on your ship or what happened on their ship. And then that's when you really get a bit of a bug for, oh, I quite fancy maybe moving to cruise ships, not container ships, or maybe I fancy this. And the Merchant Navy is flexible. Once you've qualified as an engineer, you're a real valuable commodity. So you do have those options at the end of it. So yeah.
Great, thanks. And we've got a question here saying, what's the best place to study for joining the Merchant Navy as an engineer? I wouldn't say there's a best place to study. I think a lot of it goes down to what's best for you, I guess. And also the sponsoring companies will speak to you a little bit about some of the different courses and different colleges you can go at. But if you're really interested in what it's like to study and what the colleges are like, then like we said before, if you go to one of the virtual open days, you can see the kind of facilities that the college has, and you can have a look around at some of the different experiences you can have at college, and speak to some of the cadets who are currently studying there. But there's people who've studied in all over in different colleges around the UK. There's quite a few of them. We've got a full list of them on our website as well under study, so do have a look at that if you're interested in what kind of colleges you can go to. Have the ships all got names? It's another question that I don't have the answer to. Possibly is what I'm going to say, but I don't know. Stephen, have you got any bright ideas of this one?
Yeah, a ship in the Merchant Navy has to be registered. So to have a registration, it must have a name. Those names are usually picked by the owners of the ship, but yeah, they can be varied. I mean, I think probably some of you know about the Boatface, the Antarctic survey vessel. So yeah, all ships have names. Some of them impossible to say, some of them very easy. Yeah.
Yeah, I think having said that, I have heard some of the ambassadors speaking about the names of the ships they've been on, so I probably should have known the answer to that question, but I'm very glad that Stephen was here to help me out. What are the names of some of the ships? Stephen, are you able to tell us some of the names of the ships that you've worked on?
Yeah, so I was on a couple of ferries: Spirit of Britain, Spirit of France, the Pride of Burgundy, Pride of Kent, the Disney Magic, the Disney Wonder. The ships I currently manage the Gas Agility, the Brassavola, the Fouaret, the Ducan. Yeah, endless. I could go on for another hour. I won't.
Yeah, please don't go on for another hour. Okay, we've got a question here. What subjects in school would you recommend taking for someone thinking of a future career as an engineer? I think the first one I would say is maths. I know we've said it a lot today, but it is a key one. And I know for working on board ship, lots of companies will ask for a science subject as well. Some will say specifically which science subject they want. Some might say they particularly want physics. Some might say, I don't know if they still do this, but there are some options for double science. I'm not sure if that's still a subject that is that people do in GCSEs now, because sadly it's been quite a while since I've been at school myself. So, but yeah, I think the sciences and the maths courses are particularly helpful. Stephen, would you say anything else?
Yeah, no, actually, yeah, science and maths really important, and any sort of, if particularly for engineering, depending on your school, some of them have engineering classes or even just woodwork classes, things like that, that give you manual handling skills for tools and equipment is really helpful.
Mm-hmm. And Lorna, what about you for subjects you think would be helpful for possibly engineering in the wider sector, rather than, we've spoken about the Merchant Navy, but what do you think about other careers as well?
I think it's obviously your STEM subjects, science, technology, engineering and maths, but actually I think English is really important as well, because to echo what Stephen's been saying about teamwork, not only, and it's not so much about your written English, but your speaking and listening really in your English, because you'll be in an environment where you're working in potentially small spaces, although it sounds like Stephen's worked in some enormous spaces with huge pistons in and all the rest of it, but working in a team and developing those team working skills very often starts with you developing your listening skills and your ability to read people's body language and so on, because all these jobs, nearly all of these jobs, are going to be ones where you work as part of a team, and you being part of the cadets are ahead of the game because you've been developing those skills anyway. So English is really important.
Thanks, Lorna. That's a good one to go. And I think looking at the time, I think we might have to leave it there, which is it's quite nice when it feels like the time's gone quite quickly. So I feel like it's been really enjoyable to share stuff with you. And you guys have had some really good questions. So thank you very much for asking them and for joining in when we've asked you to. It's really great to see so much interest in engineering at sea and in the maritime sector. So I'm going to hand over now to our Sea Cadet host to close it for us. And like I said, if you've got any questions, get in touch with us via the website or any of the other contact details, and we'd be happy to answer questions there.
Well, thank you very much for joining us. That was very informative, and thank you so much for just giving us this option. Very pleased to have you here. And like you said, if you had any other questions, get in touch with these kind people that have given you this lecture via their website, and you can also contact us as well, and we will try and answer any questions we have or forward you on to the right people to get the answers that you need. So thank you very much, everyone. Hope to see you for another webinar soon.
Bye.
Bye.